Welcome to the deep dive and our splash wrap for the week. We're aiming to cut through all the noise in global shipping, giving you those key takeaways, the essential nuggets, and maybe some surprising insights too. Fast.
And it's been quite a week, hasn't it? Just a really diverse mix. We've got geopolitics heating up, some important environmental moves,
Right?
and also some significant developments for seafarer welfare. It really shows how everything's kind of interconnected.
Exactly. So our goal today is simple. Help you understand what really matters in all these developments. Think of it as your shortcut to being, well, properly informed.
Okay.
Okay, let's unpack this. All right, first up, let's dive into what seems like the biggest story right now. That persistent, extreme GPS jamming going on in the Gulf. Where does this get really interesting beyond the immediate safety risks?
Well, what's fascinating here is the direct link to geopolitics, specifically that very delicate truce holding between the U.S., Israel, and Iran. Investment bank Jefferies pointed this out. They talked about a whirlwind 2 weeks. Crude oil prices, tanker spot rates, they reacted almost instantly to shifts in that truce.
Wow, really that fast?
Oh, yeah. It wasn't just noise or volatility. It's a really stark reminder of how shipping's bottom line is just completely tied to these geopolitical whispers. You know, even subtle moves, maybe a comment online or a statement about sanctions enforcement.
Like President Trump's post about China buying Iranian oil versus the Treasury saying they'll enforce sanctions?
Exactly that kind of
Yeah.
thing. It causes these immediate, significant ripples across the whole energy supply chain. It's not just a Gulf problem either. This instability connects to the Red Sea crisis, right?
Sure.
And Mainco, you know, the big shipping association, they've warned that normal Red Sea routes probably aren't coming back until late 2026. So this regional instability, it's a long-term risk factor for global trade.
So what this really means for you, listening, is that this volatility directly impacts your supply chain, your energy costs. It just highlights why keeping tabs on these geopolitical currents is, well, more crucial than ever.
Okay, moving from those volatile currents. Let's just to another kind of current. The push for environmental progress. Big news on scrubber discharge bans in the Northeast Atlantic.
That's right, 15 European environment ministers got together and decided. So open-loop scrubbers, they'll be banned from discharging by July 2027.
July 2027.
And closed-loop.
Closed loop follows by January 2029. And the thinking behind it, you hear this from NGOs a lot, is basically that turning air pollution into ocean pollution just isn't an acceptable trade-off anymore.
That makes sense. But what's the impact? How many ships use these?
Well, around 30% of the global merchant fleet has scrubbers installed, so yeah, it's significant if
But
you
you-
connect this to the bigger picture. It suggests this growing global feeling that, you know, just cleaning exhaust fumes isn't really enough. It puts pressure on those multi-million-dollar investments in scrubbers. They could become depreciating assets pretty quickly, pushing the industry harder towards genuine zero-emission solutions.
A major shift.
Hmm.
Okay, while the industry deals with environmental rules, we also had a really stark reminder about safety, didn't we? The sinking of the morning Midas car carrier.
Yes. Tragic outcome for the vessel, sinking June 23rd in the North Pacific. But, and this is crucial,
Our crew?
exactly, all 22 crew members were safely rescued. And importantly, they were rescued by the container ship Kalasko Hellas well before the Morning Midas actually sank. The fire itself started way back on June 3rd.
That's a key detail. And the fire cause. Anything specific?
Reports suggest it originated on a deck housing electric vehicles. It carried over 3,000 vehicles, including EVs and hybrids. So it brings up those ongoing concerns about lithium-ion batteries at sea again.
Right, that keeps coming up.
It really does, and it raises critical questions, you know, for maritime safety, for vessel design. As we ship more and more of these new vehicle technologies, we have to make sure their transit is safe. It affects everything. Cargo hold design, firefighting, emergency plans.
Definitely something the industry needs to keep focusing on. Okay, speaking of big industry shifts, let's look at Asia. There's major consolidation happening in Japanese shipbuilding.
Yeah, this is quite a development. Imabari Shipbuilding is taking control of Japan Marine United, or JMU.
You know what? Let's unpack this. What's the driver?
It's part of a really ambitious plan by Japan to, well, rejuvenate its entire shipbuilding sector. The goal is huge. Double output by 2030.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and regain about 20% of the global market share. They're directly taking aim at China, which has like 70% now, and South Korea.
What's behind that push? Just market share.
It's more than that. It's about economic security. It's about leading on decarbonization and shipbuilding. They're even using new models like a state-owned facility, private operation approach, and collaborating with the U.S. on things like LNG carriers. It's definitely strategic, national interest level stuff.
Very interesting. Okay, finally, let's pivot to something incredibly important. Human welfare at sea. The IMO launched something new.
Yes, on the International Day of the Seafarer, June 25th, the IMO, the UN's maritime agency, launched a new interactive world map.
And what does this map do?
It's designed to provide really clear reporting channels and support systems for seafarers who experience harassment or bullying. Plus, there's mandatory training coming on preventing harassment. That starts January 1st, 2026.
That sounds like a positive step.
It really is. It highlights this important trend, I think. How technology and regulation are coming together more and more to protect seafarers, to try and ensure a safer and, frankly, a more ethical industry for the people who make it all work.
Absolutely vital. Well, that was quite the deep dive this week, covering a lot of ground, from those strategic geopolitical chess moves affecting oil and routes.
Right, all the way to concrete steps on environmental protection.
And that critical focus on safety and the well-being of the seafarers themselves. It really is all part of the same complex global picture, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And maybe a final thought for you listening. As you see these different headlines pop up, just consider how they're not really separate events. They're all threads, in this constantly changing tapestry of global shipping.
Yeah.
And understanding how those threads connect, well, it's more crucial now than maybe it's ever been.
A great point to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive splash wrap. We definitely encourage you to continue your own exploration into these fascinating and really important areas.